Dale Reynolds Gaming, Racing Excellence.
Well, hello there everybody, Dale Reynolds here. Special little video for you guys, just giving you guys a little bit of a review. And don't mind me, I might be slurring my words just a little bit, but I got a couple of beers in me, so hold on with me and we'll get down to it. This is going to be my first ever race review. I don't know if this is going to become a regular thing, but yeah, this is going to be very, very interesting to say the least. So yeah, let's get into it, shall we? Okay, this is literally maybe 20 minutes after the race has ended, but the 2018 Coca Cola 600, you guys all know that Kyle Busch ended up taking the victory, and what a dominant car he had. My goodness, look, I am not a Kyle Busch fan. You all know me, I do not like him, but I say I don't like him. I respect his driving talent, but I do not like his demeanor in the slightest. But my goodness, did this guy tear it up tonight. I think the stat was 377 of 400 laps. I mean, that was Truex level dominance. First and foremost, if I had a hat on my head, I would tip it to Kyle Busch, and I would tip it to his crew and that whole team. That car was a driver's dream to be able to have a car that fast, no matter what the conditions were. Daylight, dusk, darkness, that 18 car was flippin' quick. So getting right into it, first stage was is actually pretty important. I feel like, honestly, the race as a whole was pretty good, actually. You know, aside from Kyle Busch's dominance, he actually, like, the pack racing was actually pretty good. And considering for Charlotte Motor Speedway, the past 3, 4, even 5 years, I want to say essentially since they started racing the Gen 6 car, that the racing at Charlotte hasn't really been all that good. As a matter of fact, it was kind of just follow the leader if you got, you know, unless you were on much fresher tires or you just had one hell of a car. You couldn't really do anything. Clean air and track position always meant the most. I gotta say that the racing overall was pretty good in this race, aside from Kyle Busch's dominance. The pack racing we saw was actually pretty good. There was a new tire compound that was used. They also used the PJ1 track surface, the track adhesive, whatever you want to call it. The adhesive was laid down on the top half of the track, and the pack racing was very, very good. There was some definite. It was a pretty good race for a Charlotte race. You know, I think it's kind of funny because they're also going from, you know, oh well, let's throw the road course in there as the chase date to kind of freshen things up a little bit with the track, and then of course the last Charlotte race before they do that is kind of like a guess what, we got a decent race for you. Kyle Busch dominated. Like I said, props to him and his team and everybody for that, because that's impressive. I'm not a fan of Kyle Busch, but I can respect that. And I think that's where a lot of people differ, because a lot of haters will just hate on him no matter what. They hate on him no matter what. It doesn't matter if he wins or loses or whatever. I don't like his demeanor, but I respect his driving ability. And tonight we saw that. We saw that. My God, that car was untouchable. It was untouchable. Like Truex's in 2016. Truex did lead more laps. I think Truex led 392 of 400. But in that race, it wasn't as exciting. It was just a follow the leader kind of a deal. This race was different. So in stage 1, there was a couple of pretty major things happening, including Kevin Harvick, who has been the guy this year. Aside from Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick has been the other hot commodity. Kevin Harvick blows a tire. Big story. 5 wins this season. All of a sudden, that's it. Out of the race, done, blown tire. One of those deals. Look, it's just a racing deal. Cut a tire, freak accident. Could have run something over, could have abused it somehow. I mean, I could probably see that the PJ1 maybe, to me, with physics, like, you make more grip, it means you beat up the tires more. That's to me, it just makes sense. If you've got an aggressive setup in there where you're running a lot of camber and you got sticky stuff on the track, like, you're taking the camber of that tire and tilting it in, and I know that it's dramatized, but you know, you're taking that camber and you're tilting the tire in like this. So you're riding on the edge of that side wall a lot more. So if you're running a really aggressive setup on the PJ1, which a lot of people were running up top in that PJ1 surface, probably beating up your tires. Who knows if Kevin Harvick was running a really aggressive setup or not, but Kevin Harvick did start in the back, and he started 37th and worked his way up. I believe when he blew his tire was 4th, 5th, maybe 6th. I don't know. But it was in stage 1. I think his issue was later on in stage 1. It was probably like 60, 70 laps into the race. But still, that car was fast. Austin Dillon also had an issue in stage number 1. He hit the wall, and it was bad enough where it tore the crush panel out of the right rear of the car. They couldn't repair it. I mean, they were doing their best to try and repair it, but they didn't work. So, and not only that, even if they did get it fixed, the crush panel was gone. All the fumes and the smells and the heat from the track are going to get into that car. I don't think he was going to finish the whole race had he continued on as long as he possibly could have, because man, those fumes, my God, they will wipe you out in a big hurry. I'm not surprised that he didn't run as long as he did. So Kyle Busch dominated. He won stage number 1. Stage number 2 started out with a incident that should have been a lot bigger than what it was. Going into turn 3, Jimmy Johnson was up high. Denny Hamlin was down low. Denny Hamlin had committed to the bottom, and Jimmy Johnson started up top, and then he was kind of coming down, and Denny Hamlin happened to occupy the space that Jimmy Johnson wanted. Jimmy wasn't too happy about it. He said, I think the quote was, hey, go tell the 11 thank you because he's such a nice guy, or something to that extent. Jimmy wasn't happy about it, but if you look at the replay, Jimmy did kind of come down on Hamlin. So, I mean, The wreck itself was, my goodness, there should have been, that should have been a 5 to 10 car wreck, and it didn't happen. 5 or 7 years ago, that would have been a 10 car pile up in turn 3. Awesome driving by everybody's part. Joey Logano got tipped by Eric Jones. He avoided this wreck, narrowly avoiding Johnson, narrowly avoiding Logano, and like I said, that was a pretty exciting moment there in stage 2. That should have been a much bigger wreck. A much bigger wreck than what actually happened when nobody hit anything. I think Eric Jones tagged Joey Logano, and as a matter of fact, if you look at the replay, Eric Jones probably saved Joey Logano because he tagged him in the left rear quarter, and kind of pushed him up the track a little bit out of the path of Johnson's spinning car, and he just kind of spun out and kind of locked it down. And my God, Eric Jones, bad luck to him too, because he had a fast car, he was running up front, multiple pit stop issues. Casey Kane, who was pitting in front of him, ripped the hose out of the front tire changer's hand. That is bad luck. Let me tell you something. He yanked the gun out of his hand. And that really sucks. But at the same time, thank God he didn't hit the crew member. That was an interesting one. That was interesting for sure. And then I think after that, it was fairly clean. Kyle Busch ended up going and winning stage 2. He won all 3 stages and the race. What an impressive on Kyle Busch to dominate like he did. Stage number 3, Kyle Larson eventually did spin. I think Kyle Larson is just running a little too much rear brake because he's a dirt guy and he loves the cars as loose as possible. When you run as much rear brake as possible, what it does is it prevents the front end from binding. What you're doing when you run more front brake is that you're binding the front end of the car. When you go and put more rear brake into it, you're slowing the car down and you're kind of getting the rear end to set more. But when you run rear brake, you get wheel hop. That's what looked like happened to Kyle Larson. You can see it on the replay that the left rear tire kind of chattered a little bit. My God, the driving ability of Kyle Larson never ceases to amaze me. That car was wrecked. He was wrecked, but he didn't hit anything. It was amazing. He kept it off the turn 1, turn 2 wall. drove himself out of it, damn near hit the inside wall, but he kept going. Props to Kyle Larson for being the kind of driver he was, because if it was anybody less than Kyle Larson, the car would have been in the damn garage. He ended up spinning out in stage number 3. He rebounded for a solid finish. He was looking pretty impressive. Some of the Chevys started to looked like they started to turn around there. Chase Elliott was in the top 5 for a minute. Kyle Larson was up front. Jamie McMurray up to second. He got up to second spot at one point in this race. That was cool. Jamie McMurray, some of the Chevrolets are starting to show speed. Alex Bowman was in the top 10 for a little bit. Chase Elliott got into the top 5 for a minute. Jimmy Johnson went into the top 5, spun out, back into the top 10, went back again, got back into the top 5. So it looked like the Chevrolets had a little more speed. The Camaros looked like they finally are starting to gain on it just a little bit. Just a little bit. It wasn't the Ford show, and it wasn't the Ford and Toyota show. I mean, unless you consider Kyle Busch's dominance to be the Toyota show. But, I mean, the Chevrolets seem like they have shown a little bit more speed as a bunch instead of just Kyle Larson being fast, or instead of just Chase Elliott being fast. You know, Casey Kane was running up front at one point. We had a long green run. I believe it was stage number 3 that I had noticed that Casey Kane was up to the 7th spot for a team that has less than a 5th, a 10th of the resources that you have a Joe Gibbs or Stuart Haas or a Hendrick or whomever. They were running up to 7th. Let's not forget Casey Kane is a 3-time winner of the Coca Cola 600. He knows how to get it done. Props to him, and also that team driving Camaros. So it looks like the Camaros are picking up a little bit on their intermediate program. But as far as stage number 3 goes, I mean, nothing really exciting except for Kyle Larson's spin. A little bit of excitement, I do believe, with Chase Elliott and Truex, and I quote Truex saying, "I should have dumped the 9 on a restart." He said Chase tried to block him on a restart, and Truex ended up getting stuck in the middle and fell backwards. So, yeah, Truex ended up coming away with a 2nd place finish, but man, he fought. And his pit crew, I don't know why they changed his pit crew over the offseason. That crew was amazing. That crew was good last year. Only 2 people have come back on that team that was on the championship team last year. Why? Why are you going to change something that wasn't broken? But anyway, Truex fell back. Kyle Busch ended up winning stage number 3. And then the final part of the race was pretty decent. Like I said, there's a lot of good pack racing. If you take Kyle Busch out of the equation, if you just take him out of the equation, go from 2nd to 40th, the racing was good. The racing was good, I think, up until the last stage. The last stage, we started to see it really get spread out. Kyle Busch was just rolling lap after lap. I mean, like, that car was just hooked up anywhere he put it. It didn't matter where he went on the track, high, low, in the middle, 4 tires, 2 tires, in between tires. That car was hooked up. I tell you something. That was a dominant car. That is a driver's dream right there. And I could tell you from sim racing experience, I have raced in leagues, and I have had cars that good. And I have dominated races like that. That is the dream right there. That is the ultimate just, mwah, to have a car that can be that fast and just take off like he did. Seriously, like, that car was undeniable. I swear, if Kyle Busch had lost this race, be it mechanical failure or some kind of random incident, honestly, even I would have been a little bit disappointed. That car was amazing. It was. That car was just... There's no words for a car like that. We've seen Truex dominate at Charlotte like that. Yes, Truex led 392 of 400 when he did it a couple of years ago. Kyle Busch, I think, only led... but he only led 377 or something like that. I mean, Jeff Gordon had a good car like that back in Dover in 2001. I think he led like 380 of 400. You rarely see that now. Well, I'm not saying rarely see it, because it seems to happen a lot more in today's NASCAR versus old NASCAR, I guess, or like at least 20 years ago NASCAR. where you see drivers dominate the crap out of a race. Truex kind of gave him a fight towards the end, but I mean, look, no, at that point in the last stage, coming to the end, I mean, there was no touching Kyle Busch. There really wasn't. Truex ended up finishing second, and he was 6.5 seconds behind with about 15 laps to go. He drew it down to about 3 seconds at the end of the race. Truex was driving it hard, but at the same time, I feel like Kyle Busch, knowing that he had a huge lead, was probably just riding around, managing the gap, taking care of his stuff, not pushing it. But like I said, taking out the Kyle Busch equation. We're going to just take Kyle Busch and just go whoosh, take him out of the field for 1 second. Everything from Kyle Busch on back was pretty good. I got to tell you, the last stage was a little bit lackluster. I think 9 cars finished on a lead lap. But the race as a whole, aside from the lead, because we didn't have very many lead changes tonight. Pack racing, I feel like, gets a thumbs up to me. The tire compound, the PJ1, that all helped. It did. I felt like it all helped. I felt like it was one of the better Charlotte races that we have seen in the past 3, 4, 5 years. You know, there was a lot of side-by-side racing. There was some cautions. There were some incidents, you know. So, you know, obviously nobody wants to wish harm on a driver. But, I mean, look, the lack of cautions kind of does make it a little bit boring, especially when nobody's wrecking, you know. But we saw some of that tonight. We saw a few people hit the wall, you know. Austin Dillon hit the wall. Kyle Larson almost hit the wall. Kevin Harvick blew a tire, hit the wall. There was a couple other guys that hit the wall, you know. And Jimmy Johnson and Joey Logano getting in that wreck off of, you know, turn 3, 4. You know, that brings a little excitement. And I felt like that this was a better race at Charlotte than we've seen in the past couple of years. So, in turn, wrapping this long-ass review up, and if you're sticking with me so far, props to you. Because I'm kind of just, I got some beer in me, and I'm kind of just going on a tangent and thinking of things that are just coming off the top of my head. Kyle Busch takes the win, dominating fashion. That car was hooked up all night. Truex ended up coming home second. A better run for the Chevys. So the Chevys look like they're showing a little bit of speed. They're showing a little bit more oomph in their aerodynamic department, I guess. You know, Kevin Harvick dropped out early. Eric Jones was very strong, but ran into a lot of problems. Casey Kane was up front for a little while. I felt like that, honestly, this race was actually pretty good for a Charlotte race. In the past 3 or 5 years, I saw a lot of good pack racing, which kept me entertained. Minus the fact that we didn't have lead changes. Kyle Busch dominated the race. But I don't really look at that as a negative. I look at the pack racing in general as the race. I felt like it was a decent race. Kyle Busch dominating the race probably didn't help your matters, and you probably have opinions, and you probably thought the race was boring because there wasn't lead changes, but I felt like, me as a fan, I care more about the pack racing because I can respect the fact that somebody's got a really fast car and a great team and can go out and just stomp on the field like Kyle Busch did. I can respect that, whether I like the driver or not. I can respect the fact that he went and did what he did. Oh, by the way, Kyle Busch has now won on every single track that he's ever started on. The first in NASCAR's 70-year history that Kyle Busch has ever won at every single track. But I digress. I felt like this Charlotte race was pretty good. I felt like it was a better Charlotte race than we've seen in a while. The combination of tire, maybe the aero package maybe helped a little bit, and the PJ1 track grip, bite, whatever you want to call it, probably all had an effect too. But I felt like this was actually a decent Charlotte race. I give the race a solid 7 stars out of 10. I felt like the pack racing was pretty good. The racing was good. It was better than we've seen in a long time. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you very much for watching this video. My name is Dale Reynolds, and I thank you for tuning in and watching the first ever race review that I've ever done. If you like what you saw, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hit that little bell and a notification there so that you get a notification every time I put up a video. I want to end this video with be safe, have fun, and I will see you guys on the next video. Congratulations to Kyle Busch and the number 18 Joe Gibbs M&M Toyota Camry team on their dominating win in the Coca Cola 600. I'm out of here. Deuces.
Make the ground shake.